Do you think the Singer heavy-duty sewing machine is going to be able to sew that patch onto the mainsail? Or am I just going to have to spend the extra money and buy a Sailrite machine? Let's go find out. Welcome to Paragon's Favorite Stuff, where we show you all of the things that we love to have aboard our 42-foot sailboat named Paragon. A couple of videos ago, I introduced you to our wonderful Singer heavy-duty sewing machine. We showed you how the machine works, we showed you all of the things that we've sewn with it, and then, for the first time, we attempted to use it to sew up a tear in the leech of our mainsail. If you missed that video, then you can watch it by clicking on the link in the upper right-hand corner of your video window. Just to summarize our first attempt, the needle had an extremely difficult time going through 4 layers of heavy sail material. The thread kept breaking during the sewing. The machine kept skipping zigzag stitches. And because the sail was so slippery, it was almost impossible to sew in a straight and steady line. After that unsuccessful attempt, I joined a couple of sewing-related Facebook pages to ask for advice. One was called Sewing on Boats, and the other was called So Far North. Both of those groups were extremely informative. I asked questions and got some really great answers and advice. A few people recommended that I get an accessory for the sewing machine called a walking presser foot. On a sewing machine, the presser foot is an attachment that holds the fabric down while you sew. I learned that there are many different types of interchangeable presser foots, and each one is ideally suited to performing a particular type of stitching. Here's the presser foot that I was using when we tried to sew the mainsail last time. It's the all-purpose presser foot that came with the machine. It's made of stainless steel and it's really slippery on the side that contacts the fabric, which is why I think last time the sail was sliding all over the place, making it impossible to sew in a straight line. Some folks on the Sewing on Boats Facebook page highly recommended that I get this presser foot. It's called a walking foot, and its unique feature is that it has these feed dogs on the bottom right here, and as you're sewing, the feed dogs move up and down on the fabric. Someone on the Sewing on Boats page also recommended that I get this particular thread. It's called V92, and it's a 3-ply resin-coated UV-resistant polyester thread that's specifically designed for sewing heavy dacron and withstanding harsh weather conditions and sun exposure. It has a 14.2 pounds breaking strain and requires an 18 or 20 needle size. And so to go with the new thread, I got some new needles. Here are the needles that we used last time. They're size 16. And then here are the new needles that I got for this new attempt. They're a size 19. I learned that the harder the material is that you're trying to go through, the bigger the needle you need to do it, which makes sense. So it might be hard to tell. On the left we've got the size 16, and on the right we've got the size 19. And I can definitely see that the 19 is much bigger than the 16. And then I talked to my mother on FaceTime, and she said, "You don't need a walking foot." She knows a lot about sewing machines, and she said that what I really needed was a Teflon non-stick foot. She said that a walking foot is designed to keep multiple layers of fabric in sync with each other as you're trying to sew through them, and that wasn't the problem that I was having, especially because I was using double-sided tape to keep everything together. She said that the problem I was having was that the sail was sliding all over the place under the presser foot, and that a Teflon non-stick presser foot would actually work much better. So I got one of those too. And here it is, the Teflon non-stick presser foot. It actually looks a lot like the all-purpose presser foot that came with the machine, but it's made of Teflon, and it's definitely less slippery than the stainless one. Then I did some tests right here at the dinette using the Teflon foot and the walking foot on some scrap sail material, and I found that the Teflon foot actually seemed to be doing a better job. So I'm going to use the Teflon foot to try to sew the patch onto the mainsail right now. Do you think the Singer heavy-duty sewing machine is going to be able to sew that patch onto the mainsail? Or am I just going to have to spend the extra money and buy a Sailrite machine? Let's go find out. So before the rain starts, we'll take the sail down again, put it on deck, bring the sewing machine out, and do the repair right here. So there's the tear and the hand sewing that we did to keep it together for our sail back to Stornoway. Now we're going to put the patch over here and hopefully it'll work this time. Here's the tape left over from the last time. I got some new tape. I'll show you that in a second. Here's some double-sided tape that I bought that's specifically designed for sail material to tape the patch onto the sail so that it doesn't move around while we're sending it through the sewing machine. Some people said that in our last video, the tape that we used was the reason why the machine couldn't sew through it, but actually when I was sewing through it, I wasn't sewing through the tape, so it wasn't just that. I got this tape, which is specifically made for sails and canvas, but I think I'm just going to use it to attach the patch to the sail for the first time I send it through the sewing machine, and then I'm going to take the tape off because I don't think we need it after we get the first stitch in. So first we'll put the tape on the inside of the patch. And like I said, I think I'll remove this tape after we do our first stitch because I don't see why it needs to be there after we get our first stitch in place. Okay, that tape should hold the patch in place while we send it through the machine. We're going to set it for a zigzag stitch, length of 3, width of 4.5. Needle position is centered, thread is run, and backwards. And then forwards the whole length. Stop. Here's halfway through our first stitch, and you can see right here that the sail got a little out of control, but it didn't skip any stitches and the thread didn't break, so I'm actually okay with this. Let's keep it going. Thread is bunching up right here. That's not great. And then we'll reverse it and then forward again. And we shall take it out. Take a look. So this is way better than last time. It's still quite sloppy, but all that really matters to me is that it holds. I think this is acceptable. I'll do another stitch here and then 2 more over here. Here's stitch number 2. Let's see if we can get it straighter this time. Not really. What happened there? Oh, the thread kind of came off. on the second attempt, the thread broke. Okay, so you saw the first stitch with the V92 thread, but I've decided to go back to the original thread that we were using last time, and we'll see if it does any better. That looks great. Okay, there's the second stitching, and as you can see, I went all over the place here, and this looks awful. It's probably going to hold together, I think, for a long time, and so maybe that's this stitching here isn't that great. Maybe this is just good enough for, you know, for a long time. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a sailmaker look at it. It sure looks ugly, but I think maybe this isn't really because the sewing machine's not capable of sewing through this material. It's because I'm a newbie at this, and it's really hard for me to just make the thing go through steady. I think I need a helper to hold the other side of the sail and pull it as I'm pushing it through, because it really is easy for it to slide around. Or maybe there's still yet something else, I don't know. But in any case, I'm going to continue using this second thread because I think it's doing a little bit better than the first thread did. And I'm going to do 2 more stitches here and here. All right, remember, don't pull.
Don't pull, just
1, 2, 3, go. And back. And 1, 2, 3, go.
how was that?
That looks fantastic. So that looks a lot better. Huh. And on the other side, it messed up right there, but for the most part, it's a acceptable sewing job, I think. All right, I'm gonna send it towards you and then go back and forth a couple of times. So, here we go. And back. And forward. That's the best one yet. Look at that. Huh. I will do one more stitch right here on the edge just so this isn't flapping like that. I think that would be better to do. I'm going to decrease the width from 5 down to 2.5. Okay, now we'll just try to do a stitch right on the edge here between the flappy part and the sail. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Stop. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, now I'm going to try to bunch up the sail here and stuff it in there as I feed it through to get a stitch right on this edge here. It's going to be a little difficult because the sail's just hard to hold. 1, 2, 3, forward. 1, 2, 3, forward and backwards, and 1, 2, 3, forward and backwards. So now we've got my original hand stitch underneath right there, and then we've got all of this other stitching in the patch. Hopefully it'll stay together for a long time, and I will keep a close eye on it, and if it looks like it's not holding together, then I will definitely bring it to a sail maker and have them do a proper repair. But I think this will hold for a good long time. This was my first attempt ever at trying to sew a sail with a sewing machine, and I learned that you really need an appropriately sized needle for the sail material that you're sewing, and it really helps to have the right kind of presser foot, and you really need strong UV resistant thread. And very importantly, it really helps to have a second person help you feed the sail through the machine while you're doing it. There's no doubt in my mind that a Sailrite machine would do a far better job at sewing through sails than the Singer Heavy Duty, but I'm still really happy that I got this machine, because the Sailrite machine costs about $750, and I was able to find this new for $135, and I've been able to use it for a whole bunch of other things like mending clothes and making curtains and sewing zippers onto the enclosure, and it's definitely been a very worthwhile investment. I'm actually still on the fence on whether I want to spend the extra money and get a Sailrite machine and get rid of this machine, and still making up my mind on that one. We're just about to push off from the Western Isles in Scotland to sail back to the Faroe Islands, and then after a brief visit we'll sail on to Shetland, where I hope to meet Davey, who is the founder of the Facebook group So Far North. He said that he's got a Sailrite machine and he'd be happy to show it to us, so stay tuned for that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, then we would really appreciate it if you gave us a thumbs up and left a comment. We absolutely love reading your comments. We wish you happy sailing, and we'll see you in the next video.